John from Ripewave Audio with our introductory review of JBL's new modern audio series. This is the MA310, 510, 710, 7100 HP, and 9100 HP, and these are going to run you between $400 and $1,600. Now, these receivers are classified as modern, although I don't really think they're introducing anything that new. They're just packaging it up and maybe hitting in the lifestyle in which they believe a modern audience is looking for. Let's take a look at this together. JBL's portfolio has been in recent years for AV receivers and processors, their JBL synthesis range, and these are really high cost products that are very capable, 16 channels, the SDP58 processor, and the SDR38 receiver. We did a review on these April of 2022. And looking at this, to me, while it has a modern look, it looks a little old and a little stale and a little boring. And these have been very expensive. $6,900 for the processor-only version and $8,550 for the receiver version of this product. Now, one thing we've noticed is JBL has positioning itself a bit of a style brand for the modern audience. I think this first started the wave with the L100 Classic relaunch, January of 2021, and then we saw other products like the TT350 Classic turntable a couple years later in 2023. At that same time, coming out with the SA550 Classic, that silver brushed metal look on this, and it really reminds me of something that you might have seen in the 70s, but has a slightly newer look to it. It's a blend of the old and the new, and I think it's kind of a nice look what they've done with this. What they're doing with the new series, though, is not embracing so much the past with a classic look, but coming up now just purely a modern look. And introducing a white color is one way to do this, and we see this even with the entry-level model, the MA310, the 7-channel receiver, $400, just coming out. Now, I don't think you can buy it just quite yet. I was just on JBL website and it's showing not available. But this unit, this introductory unit, 60 watts, 5 channels of amplification when driving 8 ohm loads, 2 channels driven, or 100 watts for 4 ohm loads, 2 channels driven. And we can see even the remote is that white color when you get the white option. But of course you can get this in traditional black, and I think there's a place for it. And of course you're going to pick whether you want white or black and how it's going to fit into the environment that you're targeting. Now, what they're trying to do with the mechanical design here is make it as simple as possible, cut down on the number of buttons, albeit I do think a lot of receivers have taken off a lot of buttons here, but I see essentially 5 buttons, a knob for the input and a knob for the volume. That's nothing special there because a lot of receivers have a volume knob and an input knob, and it only comes down to how many other buttons they're putting in. And this one has only 5. The entry-level model is a traditional 2-line dot matrix display, cleanly executed. And we can see on the back here, it's really not adding a lot of inputs on this, but we're not seeing really any outputs other than the fact that you have speaker terminals coming out the back, but nothing to pass along to an external amplifier or to other pieces of equipment. No, everything has to come in, and this is really the endpoint before it gets to your speakers. So that's really how they're setting up, trying to make this simpler. What separates this out from other processors and receivers we see coming out recently, that it's only 5.1 channels of processing, yet it's positioned as a higher quality unit. Usually the ones that are relegated to lower channels as really positioned as value units and not as high quality. What remains to be seen here is whether JBL delivers on a premium experience and not just a glossy looking version of what other companies are selling as their value products with lower channel counts. But we'll move on here. On the 510, we still have 5.1 channels of processing. You get an increase in amplification, still 5 channels, but now going into 8 ohm loads, 2 channels driven, 75 watts, 4 ohm loads, that is 100 watts driving out there. Pretty much the same thing, but I do highlight a couple of items on the back that look different. An extra antenna, we'll get into that a little deeper when we look at the networking, and an Ethernet port. So that's the main differences between the 310 and the 510, what you're going to get for your $200 more. Now, one thing you'll notice if you look on the silk screen on the back here, you now have 8K. So they move up to HDMI 2.1 support and support for 8K on some of the HDMI ports. Of course, also available in black. No difference in the front panel whatsoever on these two units. And then the MA710 going up another $200 to $799. Now with the 710, we gain 2 channels of processing and 2 additional amplifiers. And you can see here I highlighted the additional terminals here designed for the surround back speakers, producing a traditional 7.1 speaker layout configuration. So 8 channels of processing will do you 7.1. Now note all along here, there's 2 subwoofer outputs on all of these, but they're equal signals coming out of both. So they're wired in parallel, so they're not independently controllable. Now the 710 also increases the amplification. You get those 7 amplifiers now at 110 watts per channel, 2 channels driven into 8 ohms, or 160 watts, 2 channels into 4 ohms. With this, you also get a phono input for a moving magnet cartridge and 1 additional I/O for a zone output. And we can see this in black as well. The next model up takes you to a higher tier product, and they're calling this the MA7100HP. So the HP giving you a sense that it's a higher performance unit. Of course, that extra 0 at the end, bigger number on the model as well. This one's also 8 channels or 7.1 receiver. This is going to give you 125 watts per channel for those 7 amps, 2 channels driven into 8 ohms, or 175 watts into 4 ohms for 2 channels driven. The price goes up to $1,200 for this unit. You'll also notice it's a little taller, and the display on the front is now a nice color screen that is more than just a dot matrix, so you can get some color graphics on that in addition to the text. So it gives you a nice, much more cleaner look on that. Additional change on the back here is now you have an additional HDMI output on the I/O. And like the others, available in black. The final model, the flagship of this series, the 9100HP, $1,700. This one's going to give you the most channels, and the only one to deliver the 10 channel configuration. The 9 amplifiers that are built into this will give you 140 watts to 2 channels driven into 8 ohms, or 240 watts, 2 channels driven into 4 ohms. And you can see here I've highlighted those additional speaker terminals you get on the back, so you can not only deliver a 7.1 configuration, now you're talking about a real system that can have height channels. Of course, the prior model, also you could do heights if you were willing to forego those rear channels. We're going to look at that a little more deeply in a bit. And of course, the 9100 available in black as well. And you notice with these black units, the remote changes color. So the remote matches the main unit, white with the white unit, and a black remote with the black units. And we look at this whole family together. We can see here's all the white ones that are out there, and how the HP models, the high performance ones, are a little taller. and have that better display on them. But otherwise, they all look like they're from the same family. And of course, we can see this whole family in black on this. Everything else pretty much stays the same except for that front panel and the remote color. Now, looking inside this, and we're thankful that JBL has decided to release interior shots with this model. I think I had to go to a retailer site though to get this. I don't think the JBL site had these posted at the moment, but here's the entry level 310, and we can see here it's kind of a modest power supply. Because this unit's only 4K, the HDMI board is the smallest of all the units, and the circuit board itself for the main unit is a lot less populated. We see, the heat sinks, there's only 2 heat sinks on this particular unit. Now moving up to the 510, we can see the circuitry get a little more dense, a little bigger on some of the components on there. The power supply is bigger with bigger capacitors, etc. And this being a 4K unit as well as the rest of the models, that HDMI board has a bigger heatsink on it. Of course, those are doing a lot of processing if it's going to have to put through an 8K signal with all that throughput that has to handle. Moving to the 710, now we've gone from 2 to 3 heat sinks in this unit. Of course, we've increased the speaker count on this from 5 to 7 that it is amplifying, so we'll need that. Albeit it seems like the power supply is about the same as in the prior model. And yet again, the HDMI board now has gotten bigger because we've gone from 4 to 6 channels and at 8K on the capability. And then we move to the HP version. I say this is a high performance version of the 710. The chassis gets deeper. We're still seeing those 3 heat sinks. We're seeing, though, the power supply get a little beefier because it's putting out more wattage for those 7 channels. So it's going to need that. It looks like the HDMI board is the same as the 710. And then when we go to the 9100, again, no change in the HDMI board. The heat sinks are the same, although we've got 2 more channels of amplification. And the power supply seems to be the same as the 7100 HP. So they're keeping a lot the same between the 7100 and the 9100, at least what we can see visually on this without removing the different layers of circuit boards. Nice to have these interior shots, and here they are all together so you can do a little more comparison, but you can see how the HP units are deeper to accommodate the extra supplies and so forth. So let's get into the speaker layouts. You can see here we've got a 5.2 configuration. Now the 2 are not individually controllable, so that is really like a 5.1 with 2 terminals for subwoofers on the back receiving the same signal, so you're not going to be able to adjust your subwoofers differently if you have 2. Hopefully your subwoofer has some manual controls so you can still do some phase and volume adjustment and get that as balanced as you can. What I want to call attention to here, and we haven't done this for a while, is the 310 and the 510 do not support Dolby Atmos or DTS:X. They only support Dolby Digital and DTS that will do the 5.1 channels. We'll keep that in mind. That's why they're colored blue, because we're the first ones in a long time that coming out new that don't support immersive channels. There's no headphone jacks on these, a physical one. There's no AM/FM radio built on board with these. What we do like the fact is that it's auto switching power supply. So no matter where you are in the world, you should be able to plug this in 110, 220. It will do just fine. Now moving up to the other models, starting with the 710, you do get Dolby Atmos and DTS:X support because you have a choice whether to do a 7.2.0 configuration where you're just keeping everything at ear level and you really don't need Atmos and DTS:X for that. But if you configure it for a 5.2.2 configuration, then you're going to have 2 in the ceiling giving up your rear surround channels to do so. And that's where you're going to need your Atmos or your DTS:X. And the same goes with the 7100 HP. Same configuration supported. And when you move up to the 9100, you actually have an additional row that you can do on the ceiling if you don't want to have those rear channels. Now, what's great about the 9100 is you could have 7 channels ear level and 1 row and everything powered internally, and you're good. You have some options there, but you're not going to get that full-fledged 7.2.4 rear heights and 2 rows of heights. This is where this series ends, and you have to move on to something else from another brand or jump all the way up to the Synthesis products, as we said before, which is significantly more money with 16 channels of processing, but then gives you up to a 7.5.4 or a 9.1.6, depending on how many independent subwoofers you want to have controlled in the unit. And of course, those Synthesis products also have an AM/FM tuner, an onboard earphone jack. Now, the only modern audio product that supports headphones is the 7100 and the 9100 high performance, where they can Bluetooth transmit out those signals. Headphones only through Bluetooth on those units. Otherwise, these are same on those units. Now, a little bit more on the amplifier assignments. The 310 and the 510 are all fixed. You've got your front channels, your center, and your surround, and that's got to go on as it's labeled on the back of the unit. But when you get to the 710 and the 7100 HP, you can assign the rear surrounds to top front, to top middle, to party. And I had to look up what do they mean by party. It's really a stereo down mix to another zone. So it's really should have just been labeled zone, but they wanted to make it sound more exciting. Or you can buy amp, and that could be another choice. The 9100 adds to this an extra couple of channels. So now you have the rear surround that can either be configured for rear surround, top front, or top middle, but also a height output that could alternately be configured for top front, top middle, top rear, party, or by amp. Coming back to this, none of these support IMAX Enhance. You have to go to Synthesis to get that. Dolby Vision is not supported with the 310, but all the other models, which are also the 8K capable ones. Calibration. Now, the entry-level models, 310 through 710, only support a proprietary system, which is included with the unit for free, called Easy Set EQ. I've never heard of this before. I think it may be a new introduction with this line. I haven't heard of any JBL or sister brand Arcam product that has used that, or any other product. Now, with the HP high performance models, you have a paid option you can do for Dirac. This is something that Denon Marantz started, where they build an Odyssey and then give you a choice of Dirac as a paid option. So the prices are familiar with us. The limited bandwidth version is $259, and the full bandwidth is $349, but they don't have the Dirac Live bass control, probably because you don't have independent subwoofer outputs for the 2 channels. You do have to have a PC and bring in a third-party USB microphone to make that calibration work. So it's not just the cost of the software, but this is like any other Dirac, except for the Onkyo Pioneer Integra, where you can actually plug it right into the unit. I think that's the only one today that's doing it that way. Bass control, as I said, is not on there. You have to go to Synthesis to get a bass control option. No THX certification. So a little bit on the Easy Set EQ, what I can find so far, it can connect through Bluetooth to the 310. All other models go through the network, the LAN port to get to it. These are some screenshots of the application. So it gives you an idea. You select your unit. You can go through and do your calibration. So it looks like a lot of other calibration systems. This was posted up in July on the iOS for the Apple Store and the Play Store for Android in July. No comments yet on it, so we don't know how good the app rating is at the moment. The DACs, we don't know anything about the DACs in this unit. They don't publish a signal to noise, a total harmonic distortion, which I find surprising. I think that JBL, if they're going to position this as a more premium option for 5.1, 7.1, or introductory immersive, why don't you publish some specifications on signal to noise? Otherwise, an entry-level Marantz or Onkyo or what have you might solve this need as well, other than maybe not having this nice modern look on it. They do publish the specifications for the synthesis line. They're always quite good. And they use ESS chips in those. So whether they're still using ESS, I don't know, because you can see some variations in strategy even within a brand. But they do publish that they support PCM at 24192. They don't talk about DSD. Now, keep in mind that JBL or Arcam do not talk about DSD in the manual either, but I could get DSD to work, although the display on the front of the Arcam I brought in was not always reporting it as DSD. The I/O, very simple on this as we looked in the pictures, right? So you've got 4 in, 1 out on the HDMI until you get up to the 710, 6 in, 1 out, and the 7100, 9100, 6 in, 2 out. They all give you a coax and a Toslink input. No, none of them give you a digital out. They all give you 2 channels of analog in, and then starting with the 710, you also get the moving magnet phono input and a zone output starting with the 710. So very easy to discuss here. No multi-channel in, no multi-channel out. You can't hook up an external amplifier to these. You're stuck with the amps that are built into this, so we're hoping they're good enough quality. The SDR58, of course, had a lot more capabilities, as well as the SDP38. Looking at the video a little more carefully, now the 310 as a 4K unit really only has eARC, which is a HDMI 2.1 feature. Copy protection is only 2.2 on that. All the other ones that support 8K have copy protection 2.3. They're all showing that you'll give you the 4K 120 or at the 8K 60 on the high refresh rate. Variable refresh rate is supported. QFT, ALLM supported. They don't talk about QMS. They don't talk about DSC. They say there's HDR support. They don't talk about hybrid log gamma. They give support for HDR, but not HDR 10 plus. You have to go to synthesis to get 10 plus. And hybrid log gamma is talked about on synthesis. Dolby Vision comes in with the 510, as we mentioned earlier. No IMAX Enhance, kind of goes for synthesis for that. The only model that doesn't have Ethernet port is the MA310. As we said, for the setup, you got to go through the Bluetooth for the calibration software that comes free with it. They all have wireless Bluetooth in, so you like your mobile phone to the unit, but it's only until you get to the HP models that you have Bluetooth out, you can go to headphones, which is a good thing because there's no headphone port on the front of this. Dante's really only for the synthesis product, and that's something I think is pretty unique to JBL synthesis, is to having that Dante support. As far as integration controls, they're not advertising any. Now, whether that could be added to these units in the future for custom integration, yet to be seen. I could see even a need. Like, I can envision somebody that is very sophisticated with their home theater system. While they may be not using this in their home theater, they might have another room, a den or something where the kids or watch casually, and they might have a 5.1 system in there, and they want to patch that into their home integration system. Why not, right? Have Control 4, Creston, whatever, integrate with that. Of course, JBL synthesis, wide support for that integration. No triggers in this either. Of course, it doesn't have external amplifier capabilities, so the need for triggers diminishes. Streaming ecosystems, it supports AirPlay, it supports Chromecast, no Sonos. They mention Roon as being usable through the Roon app, but they don't say room ready or tested. So I'm not quite sure what that means. It almost sounds like Well, we take whatever signal's coming from your tablet or phone, and if you happen to have the Rune app on your phone, you're going to get that as well. That's the way I take it. Spotify Connect is supported, not DTS Play-Fi. The Music Life system seemed to have dropped off. No mention of Music Life, which has been a JBL thing with Arcam. They mentioned Spotify Connect and Tidal Connect being supported. They don't talk about MQA being supported. Again, it's probably whatever your phone can put out. So if you're bringing in Apple Music or any of these other ones through your phone, it's going to get to the unit. Of course, I would do it through my Apple TV, stream it that way, come in HDMI, and I feel more confident about the signal that's coming to me. Remotes, they're all the same for all these modern audio series. Much different than what you get with the Synthesis. These are smaller. These almost look like a remote for an Apple TV. A couple of extra buttons. Very simple. Color matching, as we said. No backlight, as we can tell from this, unless there's a motion sensor thing that isn't obvious. Hopefully we can get one of these in when they come about. Dimensions, we kind of alluded to this. You get into the high performance when they're a little taller. You go from 4.3 inches, 109 millimeters, up to 5.3, 135 millimeters. They're all 17 inches wide, 432 millimeters. The depth goes from 13.7348 millimeters up to 15.6396 millimeters when you go into the high performance range. Weights range from 11.3 pounds, 5.1 kilograms, all the way up to 16.8 pounds, 7.6 kilograms. Power consumption goes from 200 all the way up to 900 watts. In standby, these are going to use less than a half a watt, so pretty good on standby. All made in China. And they all are only a 2-year warranty. This is one of the shortest warranty periods we see on a product, usually 3 years for most of what we see come across for a receiver. So only 2 years on this product. Their Synthesis product, alternately, is 5 years, made in Vietnam. So some notes on the applications. As I said, the Music Life application, there's no mention here. That's what's used with Synthesis and other Arcam products. These don't get high ratings on the app stores. 3 ratings in iOS, 2-star rating in Android. Doesn't seem to be a major update. Apple site says no major update since 2022. It kind of makes me feel this is abandoned. It says a maintenance release came out February of this year for Android, but maintenance doesn't tell me that they really added a lot of functionality. What we see, though, is a new app from JBL, their premium audio setup app. I think that's a little confusing because premium audio company is Onkyo Integra Pioneer. And for them to call this JBL premium audio, it starts to confuse me. But this is a new app. And here's some screenshots from that. You select your unit, you get in. Are you going to do radio? You're going to do podcast, USB, etc. Give you some recommendations for states. So there's no ratings yet on iOS. This was populated on the App Store June of this year, 1.02 rev. Android, it's got 3-star ratings, probably not a lot in there because, again, this was just posted in June. And I'm not sure if it's used with anything other than these new products that haven't come out yet. So take these ratings not too seriously at the moment. On the setup menus, we go back to the Synthesis, the older JBL. It was kind of plain menu screen. And I was very curious to see what the menu screens would be like on this new product. Have they done any changes? Well, they have done a change, but it's still kind of plain. I think they've used crisper, cleaner fonts, which is nice to see. They give in the manual the shot of the on-screen display, and they show the input, the volume, and the surround mode. Some nice information to have on screen, but very plain. Whether they can provide more than that status, not sure at the moment. The manual is not speaking of it. And that wraps it up for modern audio, these 5 units that we should see on the market real soon. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like you have a need for a less immersive option that has a modern styling to that? 5.1, 7.1, no more than 5.1.4 or 7.1.2 on the configuration. What's your thoughts? And keeping these prices, under $2,000, and most of the units are under $1,000. Now, put those comments into this video. Of course, we got our connection series, so we'll try to answer those questions. If not just through text, we might even bring some of your comments right into those videos that we do throughout the week. The question I pose to you is this really modern audio? Because I don't see a lot going on here that's different. And I think I have a potential topic for our Ripewave connection series after this is what would constitute true modern audio, to really simplify it for those who don't know much about hi-fi gear or even care to get involved with electronics but want that nice experience. That would be really interesting to me. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We've got our thanks button. You can do a one-time donation, helps this channel. And I'm going to hit subscribe topic one more time. I'm really trying to build up subscribers here. We have a pretty good percentage, around 30% of you are subscribed, but that number can be higher. Let's get that higher for the coming weeks. And I'd like to see more of you coming back on a regular basis. And when you hit that bell notification, you're informed when the next video is posted. So please do that as well. It keeps you in the loop. We have our affiliate links that are in this video. So if you go and click on that, we get a small commission that helps out this channel and keeps us going. All these options. So I hope to see you back real soon. And until the next time, keep evolving your audio experience.